Day 14 of recovery efforts for the still missing. No survivors have been found since the initial day of the capsize. Rougher seas lie ahead for today. Support is continuing to flood in from people of all walks of life, both domestic and international stars expressing support for the victims. As coverage on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster continues for the 14th day and the mourning goes on, many feel the effects of collective depression. And how much is that doggy in the window? You won't have to ask when Clear Display Panels replaces the window and display plenty of information. On Korea Today, Tuesday, April 29th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good to have you with us on Korea Today. I'm Kim Young alongside Ju and Kim Min-jung.
As Korea continues to grieve the loss of so many lives, details are emerging about the frantic moments before the ship's demise. And the final text message sent from the sunken ship was found to be at 10:17 a.m. And it reads, "We are told to wait."
That's right. The message came an hour and a half after the ship started sinking and 50 minutes after the Coast Guard had arrived to rescue the passengers. So if only they had been told to leave the sinking ship, more lives could have been saved.
Yes, that's right. And as investigations continue, more of what should have and could have been done are being revealed, and it's heartbreaking to say the least. Now, for the latest, let's connect with our Shin Se-min at the news center. Se-min, we've been getting rain for 2 days straight at the site of the accident, as well as most of the peninsula. Now, this has slowed down the search and recovery operation, but efforts do continue.
Yes, Young. One more body, presumed to be a male high school student, was recovered on Monday night, with an additional 4 bodies being recovered on the same night. And it was a slow and harsh day for the search and rescue operation team on Monday, as weather and sea conditions were far from favorable. Heavy rain, high tides, and fast currents and fog were troubling factors, slowing the rescue operation. And the rain is expected to cease sometime this morning, but the sea conditions will get tougher, with currents forecast to reach the speed of 2.4 meters per second. And in terms of the search operation, a diving bell is expected to be put in Tuesday morning. And this will allow divers to continue their underwater search for up to 20 consecutive hours. And so far, around 111 cabins have been searched. On a Monday, the divers mainly focused on searching the 4th floor of the ferry, where most of the missing passengers are believed to be.
Now, Simon, new footage of the first moments of the rescue process before the full capsize of the ferry was released by the authorities. Now, what does that tell us? What does the video tell us?
Yes, the video released by the Maritime Police shows crucial moments of how the first minutes of the rescue efforts were carried out, also showing that the captain and crew members were among some of the first to get off the sinking ferry. Now, the video was shot between 9:43 a.m. and 9:49 a.m. by one of the first rescue teams on site. This footage clearly shows that Captain Yi Sun-sin and his crew leaving the ferry without attending to passengers. And it's difficult to distinguish him as a captain, as Yi jumps into the rescue boat in his boxer shorts without his uniform on. By 9:35 a.m., all 15 crew members who made it off the vessel started to abandon their ship, but as you can see, hardly any passengers are seen on the deck of the ferry, raising criticism the crew didn't properly instruct them to leave the ship. Now, Kim Kyung-il, a Mokpo Coast Guard official, was one of the first to arrive at the site and explained what he saw at the press briefing on Monday.
My team tried to get inside the vessel, into the broadcasting booth, to tell the passengers to get out of the vessel. But we weren't able. The vessel was listing 40 to 50 degrees, and there were people in the freezing water.
Now, a lot is being uncovered through the criminal investigations as police and prosecutors, they're searching through every crack and crevice. Now, what do we know so far?
Yes, there are a number of investigations underway. For instance, investigators have been looking into practical owner of the ferry company, Yoo Byung-un. Prosecutors raided 4 offices in Seoul, Daegu, and in Gyeonggi-do province on Monday, looking for evidence of paper companies. They also raided the Mokpo Coast Guard station, suspecting officers there neglected their duties in the early stages of the rescue. Also, 3 members of the Korea Shipping Association have been arrested for destroying evidence in relation to the case. Investigations into whether the ferry had malfunctioning lifeboats on board will also continue, as 5 lifeboats were found floating near the scene, indicating they began to work much later than they should have. If the lifeboats were functioning, they should have automatically opened up, receiving external pressure. And reporting from the news center, this has been Shin Se-min.
As the world continues to mourn for the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy, more tribute came from Japan and its people. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited a memorial altar set up at the Korean Residents Union in Tokyo and laid a flower at the altar.
So many, including young people, have fallen victim. My heart aches for them.
Earlier, Tokyo's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida and Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga also paid their respects for the deceased. Kishida told Seoul's ambassador to Japan, Lee Byung-gi, that his country will do anything it can to help Korea recover from the ferry disaster that killed at least 189 people. The altar was established last Friday for the Japanese public following a memorial service that was attended by many Korean nationals residing in the country.
And in the wake of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, new bills calling for safety enhancements were passed by the Parliament's Legislation and Judiciary Committee. The bill focuses on improving maritime safety and the establishment of solid safety measures for student group activities such as field trips. It includes hiring additional safety advisors and personnel to oversee vessel safety and establishing signals and notifications which display information on sea traffic and ocean conditions. Now, measures related to safety for students on group trips were also on the main agenda. According to the new bills passed by the committee, safety measures must be drawn up by the principal ahead of school trips and activities, while programs run by a third party must adhere to certified safety regulations. The National Assembly is expected to put the bill to vote on this Tuesday.
As Semin told us earlier on, no significant progress has been made with search operations over the past couple of days, with strong currents and bad weather conditions near the ferry accident site. The government and experts are mulling over various ideas to find more than 100 still missing passengers that are thought to be stuck on the left side of the ship, the direction in which the ferry listed as it sank. But with other furniture and appliances also tilted leftward, they're now blocking the entrance that divers need to access to reach the missing passengers. To tell us more about the search and upcoming salvage operations, we have Captain John Noble, a British Marine salvage expert, on the phone. Thank you for joining us again, Captain.
Good morning.
Now, bad weather is hampering the search operation, and starting today, we are expecting the tides to reach their strongest point for about 3 to 4 days. Now, given the situation, what would be the best way to break into the vessel to reach the passengers?
Well, this is an extremely difficult situation because, as you say, the currents are very strong, and this makes diving very difficult. It's very difficult to dive in any current at all. Once inside the ship, the divers are then protected from the current, but the question of removing debris is very physical work and will take a long time. So the best way to deal with it is probably to carry on just as they are doing, but it will be very slow work, I'm afraid to say.
And we're entering the 14th day since the ferry was capsized. Now, considering the time that has passed, could you give us some insight about the current state of the vessel? The ferry now leans to the left with its left side touching the seabed.
Well, the divers will be aware of that, but one of the things that is likely to start happening is the weight of the ferry that is above the bit lying on the seabed will possibly cause the accommodation and the upper structure to start collapsing. This structure is not designed for weight to be on it, certainly not from above. So I would anticipate that the vessel's structure will start collapsing, albeit slowly to start with.
So with the risk of the vessel collapsing, now some suggested changing the position of the hull to make it easier to find the missing passengers and to rescue or recover them before it collapsed. Now, would this be effective, and how risky would it be when it comes to securing the bodies inside the ferry?
Well, that's very difficult. I mean, the salvage cranes are on site, and they have the capability of rotating the vessel either onto its side or all the way so that it is effectively upright. This would make recovery of the bodies easier, but not really very much quicker, I'm afraid to say.
So it'll take more time to put it upright again. Now, in order to find out the exact cause of this tragedy, proper salvage of the vessel will also be very important. So what do you expect to happen in terms of the recovery of the ship, and what is the best method as of now?
Well, there are two sides to this. The first is that they will be able to inspect the outer hull of the vessel, the bottom, to see if there was damage there caused by impact. And then the best way to deal with it is actually to get the vessel upright and then onto the surface, because then the inspectors, the casualty investigators, will themselves be able to see the layout, the damage, and come to a conclusion as to what happened in some detail.
As all eyes are still on the search operation, discussion will continue on what the best method of recovery will be, and also on how to reach the missing passengers still inside the sunken vessel. Thank you for your time and insight today, Captain.
Not at all. Good evening.
That was Captain John Noble, former General Manager of the International Salvage Union from Britain.
Good morning. Let's run through the front pages of your newspapers. Now, the Coast Guard released dozens of short video clips yesterday taken by officers on the rescue boats towards the very beginning of their rescue operations when the ferry was sinking. Let's take a look at some of the images on 동아일보 here. And the headline here says, "There was time, but nobody went to the passenger cabins to rescue." Now, certainly these images have raised further outcry about the actions of the crew members. At 9:38 a.m., a Coast Guard's rescue boat is approaching the ferry as they see the ferry is tilted about 50 degrees. Now, at this point, students had been told to stay put inside the ferry, to not move from where they are, and wait. Now, the paper says they had been told to abandon, if they had been told to abandon ship, perhaps many of them could have been saved. At 9:46 a.m., which is within 15 minutes of the first Coast Guard arriving, Captain Yi Sun-sin is seen rapidly escaping the Sewol-ho ferry. That is him in the dotted circle there. A number of the other crew members also escaped safely from the bridge. And at 10:09 a.m., a female passenger is barely rescued here, almost half an hour after the captain had evacuated. The video clips show how slow and minimal the rescue efforts were, according to the paper, in the early stages following the accident. And we'll take a look at another headline here on a brighter note regarding some sports news. And the headline says, "News of victory with a yellow ribbon." Now, Korean pro golfer Doh Min-jung won his first PGA Tour in New Orleans on the 27th. He played the final round wearing a yellow ribbon on the back of his cap as a tribute to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy. On the same day, over in San Francisco, the 17-year-old Korean-New Zealander Lydia Go won her first LPGA Tour title as a professional. And moving to 조선일보, we're going to have a look at this headline towards the bottom here separately. You did hear about it at the top of the program, too. The headline says, 31 minutes after the captain escaped, last smartphone message from Danon High School student. Now, a message sent via the messaging service KakaoTalk was the last reception from a mobile phone inside the ship coming from a student on board, which is around 10 minutes before the last survivor was saved. And in the subheadline, it says that the message was sent after the ferry was tilted more than 90 degrees when more than half of the ship was submerged. And going to 중앙일보, we'll have a look at this headline regarding the Yu's family. The headline reads, Yoo Byung-hun's family receives $50 million of company's money via trademark business. So prosecutors obtained testimony that Chung Hae-jin Marine Company had paid $1,000 in royalty fee every time the Sewol-ho ferry set sail to the family of Yoo Byung-hun, the de facto owner of Chung Hae-jin Marine Company, for use of the name Sewol. Now, for the last 10 years, that means Yu's affiliate companies had paid up to $50 million just in royalty fees. And finally, let's jump to our last story here on the Mail Business newspaper regarding the Korea Silicon Valley. And the headline reads, the Korean Silicon Valley is in danger. Now, the article spells out that this whole digital industrial complex, what is known as the G Valley or the Silicon Valley of Korea, is now losing ground at the fundamental level. If we take a look at this graph here, the G Valley's plight is well demonstrated in these statistics. Now, 42 of the offices in the Kazan Digital Complex's Knowledge Industry Center were sold in the auction in the first half of this year, the highest among the other years, as you can see, according to the auction information provider GG Auction yesterday. And more companies in the complex are being pushed aside, raising a gloomy forecast that if this trend continues, the number of offices sold at auction would exceed 100 this year. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday. And coming up are the stock numbers from Monday.
China has unveiled wartime documents depicting atrocities committed by Japanese troops in China during World War II. For details, we'll turn to Eunice Kim, who joins us from the News Center. Morning, Eunice.
Good morning.
These once confidential documents also had the names of Korean women taken as sex slaves side by side with the names of Chinese women. Tell us more.
That's right, Min-jung. It's called Irrefutable Evidence, and it's a 729-page collection of 89 documents from the archives of Jilin province, consisting of letters written by Japanese soldiers, as well as newspaper articles and military files, essentially all voices from Japan, recording Japan's military invasion of China and the Nanjing massacre. Now, on sexual enslavement, Chinese media reports that the documents showed the total number of so-called comfort women came to about 400,000, and half of whom were Chinese, with more than 140,000 who were from the Korean peninsula. That's both South and North Korea. And here's a disturbing detail. It adds that one comfort woman had attended to 178 Japanese soldiers in just 10 days at a comfort station in Nanjing. Other troubling details, Japanese newspaper article recording that the Japanese military killed some 85,000 people in just 3 days. That is the Nanjing massacre, as a letter showed a soldier referring to killing the people as slicing bean curds. There were also documents chronicling the transfer of prisoners to the notorious Japanese military unit 731, where brutal experiments on living human beings were carried out. And next, we'll turn to the crisis over Ukraine, where new sanctions are queued up for friends of Russian President Vladimir Putin, both from the U.S. and the European Union. The White House said Monday it has expanded asset freezes and visa bans to 7 Russian government officials, including 2 members of President Putin's inner circle, as well as 17 companies linked to that inner circle. U.S. President Barack Obama said they were targeted sanctions in response to Moscow's continued intervention in Ukraine, despite an agreement in Geneva among foreign ministers earlier this month. The European Union has added 15 more Russian officials to its sanctions list, though it did not immediately release their names. Meanwhile, Slovakia has agreed to allow cash-strapped Ukraine to use its pipeline to move gas from Western Europe, as Kiev does seek to lessen its dependence on Russian supplies.
And finally, U.S. President Barack Obama is in his final leg of a 4-nation Asia tour that included Korea, Japan, Malaysia, and he is, I believe, in the Philippines now. Tell us about some of the developments there.
Sure thing. You know, the major development out of the Philippines has to be a defense agreement that was signed between the two nations, which would pave the way for more U.S. troops in the region, also boosted by military vessels and aircraft throughout the country. Now, during a press conference in Manila, U.S. President Barack Obama said the pact would help bolster the Philippines' maritime security in terms of training and coordination, and also stated that the goal here is not to counter or contain China. China, of course, very much in the mind's eye of Obama's Asia tour, despite being absent as a physical stopover. President Obama said Washington's goal is to make sure that international rules and norms are respected, including in the realm of maritime disputes. Manila, as you know, is engaged in a decades-long territorial dispute with Beijing. The military pact has an initial 10-year term. And that does wrap your look at the global headlines we are following this morning.
And still ahead, it has been almost 2 weeks since the tragic ferry accident threw the nation in shock, and many are still in mourning. It's during this difficult time that the public can be struck by waves of collective depression. Dr. Doh Min-jung joins us for more.
Admiral Yi Sun-sin is a legendary figure in Korean history. He's known for defying the odds and also his victories against the Japanese Navy. And our Im Yoon-hee joins us this morning for a look at a project in his honor. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So recently, a rather large art project was hoisted in the heart of Seoul, and it took the participation of thousands of people, and it's in honor of this great, memorable leader, as Young mentioned earlier. And so let's take a look. He stands tall at Gwanghwamun Square. Given the title Naval Commander of the 3 provinces, Yi Sun-sin made history when he defied the odds in one of the most legendary battles in history. Today, he's commemorated throughout the country, and the most recent tribute involves the participation of many. For the past 3 months, foreigners from around the world, along with locals, were invited to write their names and messages as part of a project titled A War Diary. More than 30,000 people have so far taken part.
From young to old, everyone can contribute. Some of the younger ones needed a little help, but in the end, the final product was very successful.
Yi Sun-sin is a legendary figure in Korean history, and some of Korea's biggest names came together for the creation of this piece, and to celebrate the installation of the final product.
In India, there's Gandhi. In the US, they have Lincoln. In different countries, there are legendary figures that stand as a symbol for something. Here in Korea, we have a figure who much of the world already knows about, and this work is to show people who he is.
Korea's top designer Yi Sun-sin also leads the team, contributing his artful eye to the project.
Yi Sun-sin is a symbolic figure in Korea. He represents the idea that, together, nothing is impossible. I also want to use fashion as a means of making people familiar with this man and what he stands for.
And this project proves just that. With the help of many, together the words and names come together to create a figure of Yi Sun-sin, a man who shows that anything is possible when it's done together.
Now, wow, Yi Sun-sin. Now, he's a figure in Korean fashion. Now, we've seen a lot of him these days.
Right. So I actually have brought pieces before that feature his works, especially with dance troupes. He does often collaborate with different groups. And now he is a very well-known fashion designer here in Korea, and he has been all over the world with his work featured on stages at different fashion venues all over the place.
And this is also symbolic in light of the Sewol-ho disaster that we're dealing with right now.
Exactly. So, I mean, they've been working on this project for a while, but as the accident happened, the Sewol-ho accident, people really felt that this project now stands as a symbol. It really does encapsulate all how people can come together and create a figure. And so they do want this figure to represent how Korea as a whole came together in light of this accident.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And still ahead on Korea Today. Now, how much is that doggy in the window? You won't have to ask when these transparent technology, the display technology, takes it to the next level. Korean companies are boosting their research on developing see-through screens which add more color and life to everyday products. We take a look at the technology behind this.
All right, time for news sum up. Celebrities from home and abroad are paying their tribute to the victims of the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry and are making large sums of donations as well.
Right, and Korean figure skating queen Kim Yeona was one of them. For more, we go over to our Seo Mi-sorang at the digital room. Good morning, Mi-sorang.
Good morning. There were both good and bad news making the online search phrase rankings yesterday. Let's get right into it and see which 5 got the most clicks. The sudden death of Buddhist priest Song-an got people's attention, as did Queen Yeona's retirement medals that were showcased yesterday. Meanwhile, actor Yoon Si-yoon quietly reported for military duty at a marine base in Pohang. In tribute to the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, singer Connie Talbot attached a yellow ribbon to her microphone during a concert in Seoul, while entertainment mogul Lee Soo-man donated just under $1 million toward relief efforts. Now let's go back and take a closer look at the first listing there, the one about the Buddhist priest. Nicknamed Keeper of the Tripitaka Koreana, Buddhist priest Song-an was the person in charge of looking after the sacred scriptures. Tripitaka Koreana, or Palman Daejangyeong, is a complete collection of Buddhist scriptures carved on over 80,000 woodblocks in the 13th century and stored in the Haeinsa Temple in Gyeongsangnam-do Province of South Korea. It is the 32nd national treasure of Korea and is listed in UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, the UNESCO committee describing the woodblocks as one of the most important and most complete corpus of Buddhist doctrinal texts in the world. Priest Song-an was appointed director of the Tripitaka's Preservation Bureau back in 2010 and has since been the only person who had unlimited access to the woodblocks, spearheading efforts to preserve and promote the scriptures. The priest was in the back seat when a car accident last Saturday killed him instantly. He was 47 years old. Priest Song-an's funeral and cremation rites will be held this Thursday at the Haeinsa Temple. Moving on to our next issue, let's have a look at Kim Yeona's souvenir medals. After 2 delays, Queen Yeona's retirement medals were showcased yesterday. They were initially planned to be showcased on the 17th, but Kim Yeona and her agency All That Sports postponed the event twice in light of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Designed and manufactured by the government-owned Korea Minting Corporation, 4 medal types have been produced. 1 gold, 2 silver, and 1 bronze. The gold and the large silver medals are limited to 2014 counts each to mark the year of Kim's retirement. The gold medal, which contains around 10 grams of gold, costs approximately $1,300. The large 120-gram silver medal around $500, and the bronze medal around $50. They are all available for pre-purchase at KB Kookmin branches nationwide. A portion of the profit will go toward fostering future ice skating stars, while another portion will go toward the relief efforts of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. That's it for today's News Sum Up. I'll be back with more updates tomorrow.
And despite the bad weather over the weekend, tens of thousands, they went to pay their respects at the joint memorial altar in Ansan. 160,000 or so far have visited to pay their last respects, and this reflects the number of people in Korea that are mourning the losses.
Many Koreans are feeling helpless and hopeless, and last week we looked at a condition called the post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and this week we're going to take a look at what is becoming a nationwide phenomenon that can be categorized as collective depression. Let's take a look at a short clip before talking to an expert about it.
The entire country has been overwhelmed with sadness following the tragic sinking of the Sewol-ho ferry, which claimed the lives of young students and teachers. To mourn the loss of countless lives, events and festivals were canceled across the country, and people have put a halt on spending. At large retail stores, compared to a week before the accident, sales saw a 3 to 5% decrease, along with a prevailing atmosphere of concern and sadness. Heading into the second week of the accident, as people continue to watch coverage of it, many say they feel a sense of depression.
My child is the same age and I feel frustrated that I can't do anything.
It really saddens me that people like my own brothers and sisters were lost in the accident.
Following past major disasters in other countries as well, signs of depression spread to those who directly or indirectly witnessed the incidents. In particular, children and teenagers, the elderly, and those who are more emotionally sensitive require more assistance. With such a tragic event unfolding in the country, there are concerns about collective depression spreading. Systematic care will be necessary to ensure people can receive the help they need.
And to tell us more, we're joined by Dr. Doh Min-jung, Director of the International Family Counseling Center in Seoul. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us this morning. Now, this is becoming a nationwide phenomenon, feeling lethargic and just not knowing what to do about our sadness. We seem to be going deeper and deeper into it as the days turn into weeks. Now, I understand that this is something that is not diagnosed, though. Tell us more about this collective depression.
Well, right now I would hesitate to use the word depression because depression is a diagnosable disorder. I would use the word grief. I would say that people have been grieving due to the magnitude of the disaster, and that makes sense. We have been constantly exposed to the media and unsettling images that have been really disturbing us, and that's really been affecting us. And so then in a way we have been actively grieving, and that explains the helplessness and hopelessness and the sadness we have been feeling. However, I agree that there is a collectivistic aspect of how people have been grieving, and that in a way makes sense why people have been feeling so confused and saddened by the disaster itself. Well, the word collective depression was initially coined by a social psychologist to describe a permanent sense of inadequacy and helplessness and hopelessness in a society. And so that explains what this culture in this nation has been experiencing. And I think the social regulation problems that have been raised after the incident has happened also explains why people have been struggling so much.
Dr. Doh, I've noticed you use the word confusion, and that seems to be what a lot of us are feeling. We're confused. We're not exactly feeling happy. We're sad. We're depressed, but we kind of don't know why. Now, you did mention that its media coverage has something to do with it, but how is it that people who aren't directly involved, they become collectively depressed?
Well, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, how is it that those of us, you're not directly involved, I'm not directly involved except for reporting it every single day, but the fact is that we become depressed, and as a whole nation, how is it that we're not directly involved, but we actually do become fallen into a state of depression?
Well, I think that the fact that we're constantly exposed to the media and the images, I think that's definitely affecting us. It seems as though we cannot really separate ourselves from the news that we have been hearing, and of course that affects us deeply too. And so then again, because we're constantly exposed, that we cannot not think about it, and so then that really affects how we have been functioning, and that's connected to depression, or how people have been describing as depression. It is really important to differentiate depression from the experience of grieving, because that's what we have been experiencing. In order to be diagnosed with depression, certain significant symptoms need to be observed, and that includes sleep difficulties such as insomnia, hypersomnia, or weight loss or weight gain, or not being able to function. And so then if those symptoms are not observed, then I wouldn't really use the word depression.
And is there any way that we can assess ourselves if we're going through this depression, collective depression?
That's a really good question. As a psychologist, I would really not recommend people to self-diagnose. However, there are enough tools online that people can use. There are many checklists that people can use. However, if you feel as though those checklists apply to you, then I would really recommend to seek a mental health professional to get assessed.
And you mentioned this before, but we are constantly exposed to the news, and we are actually in this news business, so we are day in and day out reporting on it. I'm sure many Koreans are just tuned into news, watching the developments as the day passes. Now, but and many events are being canceled as well, just to keep in light of the wake of the accident. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Is this making people more depressed than is necessary?
Definitely. Again, there's a collectivistic aspect to this. The part that I'm somewhat concerned about, or that I'm paying attention to, is that people grieve differently. However, it seems as though people can receive the message that there are certain ways to grieve, and if you are going away from that accepted way of grieving, that's a problem. And so then I hope that people feel comfortable to grieve the way that they have been grieving, and without really worrying about being judged by others.
Okay, Dr. Doh, so let's say you do find yourself in a collective state of depression. Now, how can you get out of it? Must you go the professional route and seek professional help, or what are some ways that you can pull yourself out?
That's definitely one way, but there are other things that we can definitely do. And one is to just maintain your routine that you had before. So wake up on time, go to bed on time, limit your exposure to the media, and so then you feel like your life is going as it has been. And then second is exercise. I know that people are really busy and it's really difficult to exercise. And so then what I've been saying is just try to raise your activity level. Just try to walk a little faster or move a little bit more, which will help your body to release chemicals that will help you to feel a little better too. And then lastly, I think this is the most important thing. People have been asking if it's okay to laugh or to have positive feelings. Laughing doesn't mean that you're not grieving. It is okay to laugh and experience positive feelings. And that doesn't really mean that you're minimizing the severity of disaster too. I think it's really important to grieve, but it's also really important to figure out how to recover from this disaster and then move forward too.
Okay, well, We have small children at home, and we certainly don't want to expose them too much to such news, but we do also want them to understand what's going on in the world around them. So how do we talk to small children about what happened, and how can we help them handle such emotions?
I think there are definitely a couple things that we can do. One is to sit down with them and talk with them and explain in a way that they can understand too. I think as much as we are confused, I think it's really easy for children to get confused too. And so then sitting down with them and explain that some things are confusing and it's difficult to understand. So it's okay to feel confused. There's definitely one message that needs to go out to the children. And then
be honest to them and share and talk to them about these feelings.
Definitely, and just validate their experiences too, because they're likely to feel sad by what they've been hearing. So just letting them know that they have places to go to express and talk about their experiences and thoughts and questions would be important.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Doh, for joining us and giving us information on the state of collective depression as well as how to get out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good morning to you all as we kick things off in the LPGA. And just moments after Doh Seung-yeol was able to claim his first PGA title during the Zurich Classic, 17-year-old Lydia Ko was able to win her first title as a pro at the LPGA Swing Skirts Classic. The 17-year-old Korean New Zealander who gained her LPGA Tour membership starting this season despite her age stormed through in the third and fourth round of the event as she came back to claim her first pro title after shooting a 12 under par overall. The score was good enough to beat American Stacey Lewis, who finished second at 11 under par, while world number one Park In-bi still looks for her first title of the season after finishing tied for fourth at 6 under par. And shifting over to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, where the International Olympics Committee's organizing committee will be in the resort town for 4 days to check up on the current status of the venue. In what is their third meeting so far, the meeting will have some of the presidents of different winter sports federations come together to check out the current status of the venue in Pyeongchang. They plan to take a look at how the constructions are being done and where the Olympic Village will be built. Meanwhile, Taevyo Singkwanta, the president of the International Skating Union, who will also be on hand, apparently refused to answer questions regarding the controversial judging during the figure skating event during the 2014 Sochi Winter Games. And moving over to the KBO, it rained all day yesterday, but no matter since there was no baseball on Monday. But taking a look at how the league looks so far, it looks like a pretty tight race early on. Now, so far, the Nexen Heroes have been dominating the league with their high-octane offense so far, but the NC Dinos, SK Wyverns, and the Doosan Bears are right around the corner. But it's been an interesting season so far for the lefty pitchers, as 7 of the top 10 pitchers in the ERA category are lefty pitchers. This including Doosan's Yoo Hee-gun and even Yoo Chang-sik of the Hanwha Eagles. Meanwhile, baseball continues today if the weather clears up. And finishing things off in the majors, where Lee Hyun-jin took the mound against the Colorado Rockies on Sunday to get his 4th win of the season and the LA Dodgers' 10,000th win in team history. Well, none of that actually happened, as the Rockies lineup took advantage of Lee Hyun-jin's 4-day rest, tagging him for 6 runs on 5 innings of pitching, as the South Korean southpaw got his 2nd loss of the season. And with the loss, the LA Dodgers, who are looking for their team's 10,000th victory, stayed at 9,999 wins. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Now, last time we had a chance to see some transparent solar panels, and now we're going to see something else that's transparent, and we're talking about display screens.
That's right. Transparent technology is something that a lot of people are excited about. We have some state-of-the-art technology standing by with Jin-ju and Daniel Lee. Take it over to you guys.
Right. As you guys mentioned, Korea is one of the leading nations when it comes to transparent OLED technology. And we have Daniel Lee joining us here in the studio to tell us more. Daniel.
Hello. Thank you. It's good to be here again. That's right. We have a lot of people who know about transparent displays, but not a lot of people know what actually goes into the technology behind these displays. So today, we're going to see what kind of research is going behind these technologies, and we're going to see how they're impacting our daily lives. So let's take a look. You can communicate with other people and check out the latest information all on transparent displays, something that will become a reality in the future. And to make this happen, a Korean company is working on various see-through display screens. There's a special patented technology that makes images look smoother.
Light has a tendency of moving straight, so if there is an edge, you see something called a corner phenomenon. But we have a technology to hide that line so you can see the contents better.
The see-through display case developed here allows users to look at product advertisements and leave notes with the touchscreen function, making things more convenient.
Transparent displays will replace windows, so a lot of people will be able to use it in various fields.
Another showcase developed by The V is already being used in shops and receiving good feedback. The actual product and video that play back in the transparent screen draws attention with its media art quality content.
I initially thought it was a glass showcase, but it has a touch function and it can also be thought of as a digital piece of work.
Recently, The V has also put out a trans-look refrigerator door solution that comes with added sensors. The device, made with self-developed technology, not only recognizes people approaching, but it can also change playback content when someone reaches for the handle.
See-through displays can be used for refrigerators, but it can also be used for laptops and regular glass with applications, creating a new form of media with added value.
Meanwhile, there's also transparent displays that can block out light without using physical curtains, offering a glimpse of what could soon become reality. Korea's transparent display technology is receiving a lot of recognition in other countries, bringing users one step closer to a future with added convenience.
And in the future, we'll be seeing more and more of these transparent display technologies in homes and offices and more often in our daily lives. And a lot of research is going on, being carried out to further develop this technology. Tell us more about that, Daniel.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of interest going into the next generation of technologies, particularly that deals with these transparent displays. So basically, we're going to be seeing more research being developed, and we're going to see even more advanced displays because they're going to be used in companies as well as in homes. And we have two products out on display behind me, right here.
I'll have to try this out.
Yes.
So if I approach this refrigerator.
Yes. So if you approach it, basically you can see the screen changing because there is a consumer a sensory here, a consumer proximity sensory, we say.
And then I'll touch start.
And if you touch the screen, yes.
We can select fresh start or cleanse. And what type of drink do you want?
Yes.
I will like less sweet green. And for energy.
What are you in the mood for? You're
yes.
correct. Energy. I think it kind of froze there a little bit.
I know. Okay. Then for the next step, I'll have to open the door of the refrigerator.
Correct. And when you touch the handle, you can see that the LED screen actually changes for a new advertisement because there's basically a door handle sensor here.
Right. And then if I close it back, it'll go up again.
That's true. So there's also a open door sensory, basically, which means if you open the door, the light inside the refrigerator dims, and when you close it, the light comes back on again.
Moving on to this showcase over here, I see my picture here and a lot of familiar faces as I scroll the screen. And then touching this button over here, we'll be seeing this beautiful scenery.
Yeah, so inside this showcase, you can see there's a product inside here, and the LED screen, basically, if you push use over here, what happens is you can view the product, and as you view the product, you have this motion sensor capture LED over here, And so whatever you push on the LED corresponds to the revolving table inside this display. So if I were to push this and move it to the right, you can see the product revolving to the right. And if I move it to the left, it'll also move to the left in a 360-degree motion, yes. So the motor inside here is basically in control of that, and that's how the product works.
It may not be apparent to our viewers, but there is a small car inside that box, right?
So,
it's not the screen.
So
it's
this
the actual
product
thing.
can be a bag or anything, a smartphone on display.
A bag would
jewelry,
be nice.
right? A
Yeah,
bag.
right.
Whatever you want.
So these kind of technologies are now being used for advertisement and marketing purposes, but where else can it be used? What other purposes would it have?
Well, we've seen a lot of these products being used in movies before, and these things can actually pull up a lot of different types of information, including the multi-touch functions. So basically, if you have these installed in your home, in your refrigerator, for instance, like we see over here, it can basically pull up information about the type of food that's inside your refrigerator, how long your food can last, and even how to cook it. So these are just some of the ways that this advanced LED technology will be used in the future.
Right, so today we had a look at transparent display technology, and it could be used in so many different places and for different purposes. So before we wrap up, let's get a quick look at the key features of the products we just looked at.
Hi, so we're thirsty, I think.
You want to get closer to the refrigerator.
Okay, you have to get in front of it, right?
The sensor's over here. Yes, the sensor's right here, so you have to make
There it is.
All right. So,
has to be right in front of
it. It has the name of our station right there. Start.
There you go. Now you have
choose our drink of great tasting refreshments.
We're not agreeing on anything here. Proteins.
Proteins, fine. Human aid, whatever that means.
And that's our logo.
Oh, wow. This is
okay, so in other cases, if this was at a store, this would recommend a drink for you, and then you can go ahead and go for that,
There's so many drinks out on there on
and
the
then
market.
you can open and get your drink. Wow, this is pretty neat. Wow. Huh. Interesting. Thank you, Daniel, for bringing these products.
It's my pleasure.
All right.
All right, that just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Let's go for that.